I was, in my early life, repressed and introverted, and I stayed all by myself and drew all the time. And that eventually resulted in an art form that's unusual because I wasn't trying to ever be a professional. I mean, who wanted to be a professional? All I wanted to do was create fantasy worlds.
He was fearless with his sexuality. He was fearless with his artwork, with attacking things in his artwork that he thought were unjust.
He's funny, he's anarchist, political, he's sexy, mystical, he's magical. One of the most transparent and true arts that we already saw.
Whether it's transcendental meditation, Zen philosophy, humor, wisecracks, that he was able to deliver this whole thing he was exploring was genius. I don't think anyone really knew what to fully make of it. You know, I really don't.
He was so enthusiastic, he had so many ideas, but he was also very patient with people who didn't quite get what he was trying to do.
He invented his own universe. He didn't just think of a plot, he thought of a whole civilization, from economics to warfare. He invented whole cultures for his stories. The scope of his imagination was just endless.
He was like going in every direction you can imagine. He was an expanding universe. Cut terribly short.
My grandparents got a call. They said there's something happened to your friend in California. Don't know. I was kind of stunned by it. The sun was shining and I didn't believe it, you know, that he was gone.
Okay, we got sex and we got death. It's like, damn. It's like cutting off your ear. It's interesting to the masses. You have to get rid of the person so you can own that person. But I think in Vaughn's case, it was kind of different because he gifted his son with his art and his characters. I don't know if that's ever happened before.
Mark grew up, became his father in a lot of ways. For a while, it seemed like he was just trying to make sure that his dad's memory didn't go away, but he's kind of like become what that memory was and more. So in a rare way, we still have Vaughn around to see what's happening.
Here we are in Stockholm, Sweden, and as you see, Cheech, the lizard, and Bode still alive.
What Vaughn did, the writing of the letters, that became an art form in itself. It was so good and so perfect that people glommed onto it. They began imitating his lettering styles to put their own monikers on there. And they began putting Cheech wizards on the trains.
So these graffiti kids, you know, they're hitting up the trains just for the adventure of doing it, and they're not thinking of themselves as artists. They're promoting themselves in their neighborhood and giving themselves fame. In a weird way, when that culture blew up, it kind of brought Vaughn back, because then it introduced him to a whole new audience that really didn't know him.
Imagine that the whole graffiti world feel that. They don't know, but they feel to do, you know? Because the style touch them, but I think something else that even then they don't know. I think it's like when you plant a tree, you know, and then they grow and they start to give you fruits, and people start to eat. He's gone, but he plants something.
My father used to take me up this hill. We'd pack a lunch and go up there and wait for him. And we'd wait for Cheech Wizard, and Cheech would never come. Maybe he'll show up this time.
I hear you breathing. What better way to voice the pleasures of the living?
When I was a little kid, you know, I was like 5 years old, and my dad would give me 25 cents to do a strip for him. So I'd do like 3 or 4 comic strips, and I'd make $1. And my father was encouraging the whole thing. As I got older, the characters were already real in my head, and so once I got my drawing abilities together, it just clicked right in, and I automatically was without effort in the style of Vaughn's, and so it became a family style. The thing that makes a character an icon is usually a one line, you know, can express a character. Like, you should be able to, like, take a character like Mickey Mouse's the ears and the nose. You know, it's like these characters are icons, and they're also designed so that you can draw them easily. Cheech was obviously one of them, you know, and the lizards are a little more harder to draw, you know, to try to draw a lizard from the front with the flap and the mouth. My father even had trouble with that. First exposure I had to graffiti was when I went to school visual arts in '81. One day I was just waiting on the train, and a non-stop went by me. It just went by, like, and I saw, you know, as the wind hit me, also the imagery on the train hit me. It's like seeing my life flash before my eyes. What's up with my dad? What's going on? Why are people risking their freedom to get us up? And that blew my mind. I was like, how the fuck did my father touch somebody so much that they'd actually risk their freedom? The early writers, they were really inspired by the comics. I think it was the simplicity of the characters. Once again, the icon character with, you know, the simple graffiti-like line. And it's so easy to do a Bode character because they have those nice beefy fat lines and they're simple. There's some debate as to who was the first to do Bode characters. I always tip the hat to Dondi, because he was the one who really made them famous. I remember talking to him. He said he wanted to be Bode and Son, and we were going to do great works together. I was only 12 years old, and I'm like, gee, Dad, that's great, you know. But it's like, you really can't. He died when I was 12, so We were just talking about that stuff. He worked non-stop, day and night. Like I hardly ever saw him as a kid. I'd see him, you know, sleeping, or he's in a studio. And now and then we go for a walk. Really, I've become a second-generation cartoonist, and I really have no peers that I can relate to as far as that goes. I'm alone, and I'm carrying it on, and I feel my father whisper in my ear as I'm drawing sometimes, and you know, I get like ideas that aren't quite true to me, that are obviously his ideas, and they're not forced. They just kind of creep into what I'm doing, and so a lot of times I'm channeling his work. I do my best work when I'm working on my own stuff, but I'm so critical that I'm basically in a bad mood through the whole thing, and then at the end I go, oh yeah, that kind of worked, yeah. My strengths come in diversity, you know, like I can tattoo, I can paint, I can do comics, I can, you know, do spray can murals, you know, airbrush, whatever, you know, like I do all the things that he never got to do, and so my strengths are much different from his. He burned really bright, he had a lot of good ideas, he was true to himself and his work, and he owned everything, and I own them now, and I continue it, and I stay true to what he would have wanted. Now we're getting toys made and doing all this stuff that he had dreamt of back then, and it's kind of cool that, you know, that I'm around to help him out, and you know, it also makes my heart bigger, you know, because I can keep him alive. And the characters were like my friends when I grew up, and when he died, they died, and so when I bring them back to life, it's like bringing an old friend back to life. And you know, if you could do that with a friend you lost, wouldn't you?
Hello, I'm Mark Bode, and this is my studio, and welcome. Come on in. I've got a lot of artifacts from my past. From my father was Vaughn Bode. Him and I only got to spend 12 years together, but it's been a lifetime of keeping him alive and his characters, and so there's a lot of artifacts around this small studio where, you know, you can kind of get some history. Call him the saint of comics or graffiti art, but he's very religious, but he collected all the different religions together and made his own. This is The Lizard of Oz. This was the last piece my dad did before he died. It was July of 1975. He was at the New York City comic book convention, and some friends of his, Dan O'Neill and the Air Pirates, were getting sued by Disney for doing X-rated Disney comics. You know, Mickey and Minnie doing things that we never dreamt of them doing. It was a great comic, but Disney decided to use them as an example and decided to sue the shit out of them, and for millions of dollars. And underground comic artists didn't make any kind of money. You know, I mean, you make a few hundred here or there, for, you know, maybe a few thousand here or there, but there was no big money in it. And but Disney wanted to make a show out of it, and so the last convention my father was at, my father decided that he would help benefit the Air Pirates Fund, and so he auctioned himself off with a big piece of blank paper to the highest bidder, and it went up to $750, which was a considerable sum back then. It was probably like a few $1,000s for a blank sheet of paper. So the person who bid the highest was a Wizard of Oz fan, and he said, "Could you do the Lizard of Oz, Vaughn?" And my father said, "Hey, that's a great idea." So that's how the piece came about, and I watched him do the whole thing. He did it. He stayed up that night in the artist alley and did the whole thing start to finish. And 2 weeks later, he was gone. I continued it about 20 years later, 20-something years later. But it was something that had to be finished. But still a gorgeous piece, and the last thing he did.